Hi, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums, and I am here to make cards. I have received paper in my design team package from Country Craft Creations called Sweet Southern Miss. There is the paper collection. It is bright and colorful and lots of fun. So I have already made this card organizer in a prior video, tutorial and everything, and I want to fill it up with some cards, and it would make a nice gift. Now you can make the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 size cards, or you can make the larger cards and they would fit in the pocket. So I am going to work with you on using up our stash to make some cards. The first thing we're going to do is make card bases. So let's do that. To make card bases, you'll use 8 1/2 by 11 cardstock, and I would use a heavy weight 87, 100 pound. Just don't use 65 pound. It's a little flimsy. And to make 2 card bases, I'm going to score with 8 1/2 inch side at the top at 4 1/4. And then I'll grab my paper trimmer and cut at 5 1/2. And then simply fold and burnish. And make as many of those as you think you will make cards. And this is a fun thing, I don't know. This is something you can do ahead of time and just have these in your stash. The next thing I'm going to do is make some embellishments with the paper. Now you do the obvious ones first. You can fussy cut any of the tags or any of the whatever's in the collection. So these are ones mostly without any sentiment. Now you could use bloom you were planted as a sentiment. I mean, that would be great for a new house or something like that. Country Girl might not necessarily be a sentiment, but you could still use that as an embellishment. And then I also fussy cut some flowers out of this page. I just chose some of the flower sets and cut the flowers. I also used some enamel dots not enamel dots, some Nouveau drops or whatever you have, glaze, to highlight the center of the flowers. I cut out these hearts and used the crystal drops on that, and I also did inside that little teacup. I also took some of the paper and matching cardstock and used a die that I had and made birthday cakes with candles on it, and that will be embellishments obviously for a birthday card. And then the next thing I did is I used a stamp set that I have and I stamped some sentiments. In this case, the stamp set stamped it on a circle, and you could stamp a circle around it. And also I took a die, and this one is a stitch die and that one's not, and just tried to make it so I could put the sentiment on there to add a pop of color if I feel like I need to. So use whatever stamp sets you have. If you don't have stamp sets, you could always print something on the computer. Just make sure it's going to fit within the parameters of your cards. So that is also what I do to prepare for making cards. All right, I want to show you something before we go any further. So here is a card, and they're similar, the same style, but as you can see, one has a red mat around it and this one doesn't. You can go in either direction. Some people only like matted cards, some people only like unmatted cards. Obviously a matted card uses twice as much paper and it's a little heavier, and there are twice as many steps to completing a card with a mat as an unmatted card. But you might say it's worth it because of the look. I personally like matted cards, but if I am doing many cards at once, I might not take the time to mat. And let me show you something else when we're talking about matting. So if you were to use a red mat on the next card, you could take a die and cut out the sentiment hello and a doily sort of circle and use that as an embellishment on the card, so you're not wasting this whole card as a mat, and it also helps reduce the weight of the card. And then all you have to do is take paper that's cut 3/16 of an inch smaller and put it on there, and no one will ever know. So those are your choices, matted or unmatted. Make your decision on what you want to do, and then we'll proceed. All right, let's talk measurements. So card bases are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That is a standard card base that you're going to find envelopes all over the place for. And then the next layer I like to make with a smaller border around it. So the next layer will be 4 1/16 by 5 5/16. And then if you are going to do another layer on top of that with the patterned paper, that would be 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. So there's that. Now if you're not going to do a border, you're just going to do the pattern paper 4 1/16 by 5 5/16. So let's grab some paper and cut it down. And I'm going to choose directional paper just to show you the steps you would take. So there is this. Probably won't use this just because none of my sentiments are written in the same feel as this, but this side is fabulous. I think I had a dress like that, but let's just use this for argument's sake and say we're going to cut this down to put on top of the card bases. If we're going to put it straight on the card base without any mat below it, we're going to cut it 4 1/16, and the reason that is because I am cutting it 3/16. I might have said 3/8, but 3/16 width, and then 5 5/16 tall, and that again is 3/16. Just making sure I get it. And I'll cut a couple because we've got it. And again, don't throw this out because you can use this on the card. And now this way you can decide which orientation you will want on this side. And of course that side only has one orientation. That of course is unless you're going to do cards like this. But I don't do that very often. When we're done and there's only scraps left, I might do that. And then, so now we have another piece. And since I'm going to cut it as if I'm going to mat. So we'll cut it 3 7/8. This is a very old Fiskars cutter. I couldn't tell you where to get it anymore. But it's fabulous because you can cut several layers at a time. And now 5 1/8, and 5 1/8 here as well. And if I were doing this like Fast and Furious, trying to get a lot done, I would probably cut several sheets of paper at once, checking to make sure the orientation is right, but just making sure. Now I'm checking to see the size of this one, and it is 4 1/16, so I could do this as if there is no mat on it. So I'm going to cut it to 5 5/16. So I'll do both. I'll do some matted and some not matted. Now again, save these pieces. You might not use it for this one, but there might be other cards that you can add it to, similar to this card design. So go ahead and cut your bases. Let's just get a bunch of those done, and then I'll do some also, and then we'll come back and see where we are. My desk looks so colorful right now. All right, so I've cut a bunch of card fronts out, and these are the scraps. There's some long, some short, square. They're all different. I'm going to move these out of the way and not worry about them for right this minute. For this set, these I cut smaller, so these I will need card bases. So I'm going to go ahead and cut card bases, trying to match it. Like this turquoise would go nice with this, but the turquoise goes really nice with that. So I'm going to cut different card bases and see which goes. Do we like that? That looks good. Oh, that's just pieces of that, so that won't work. And then I'm going to adhere these to the card fronts because these are the large size. And then don't forget, with these card bases of the plain colored cardstock, I'm going to see if I can die cut anything out of them before I adhere it to the card front. So I'll go ahead and do that and come right back. All right, I want to show you what I've gotten so far. So these are the ones that I'm doing without any mats. And so I've just, isn't that fabulous? I'd love that. I've just cut this one, sort of mistake. I should have probably turned it over, but I will figure out something to cover that with. It was part of a windmill kind of thing, but I love the blue, the turquoise. More fabulousness. I even like this, even though it's sort of white on white. I think that looks good. Geometrics, love that pattern. That's even pretty. But, so these are the ones that are going to have the mats. And what I did is I took a rectangular die and just cut out 1/4 of an inch around it. I mean, they're not perfectly straight, but it doesn't matter because the outside of it is straight. And when I am done, I'm going to be putting the card fronts that are smaller onto those mats. So what I need to do first is sort of go through and figure out, because I have several different colors, and I like that red with that. So I'll go through and figure out what's going to go on what, and then I will show you what I have when I'm all done. So I have my card fronts already. These do not have mats on this side. This side does have mats. I went through and chose what colors would be good for what mats. Obviously with this one, the red was good, but to be honest, I like it unmatted. I like the white border around the red, but either way. And then what I'll do is go through, and I have some cut aparts, and if you have a paper collection that has sentiments on the cut aparts, and a lot of them do, just grab those cut aparts and you can put them on the front. Let me see what I would do. I'm not going to use this because really I'm just doing birthday, anniversary, thinking of you, and maybe a couple of condolence cards. Bless This Nest would be good if I was doing a new house, but I honestly don't know anyone who's moving into a new house. If I did, let me see. I mean, really, you could just put that on the card front like that. I have this one. Could that go on here? That's too busy, don't you think? Could it go on there? It could go on there. I'm not nuts about it. Yeah, that's that one. How about here? Aside from the windmill, that's okay. Oh, how about just something plain like that? Too plain. Anyhow, I will figure out what this will go good on and just adhere it, and then I could put a sentiment down at the bottom. You know, that could be a thinking of you or something like that. So do that before you go any further. Take the card base, take any cut aparts, and especially a 3x4 cut apart to put on, and then you're done with those. What I'm going to do now is grab my scraps, and let me do that and come back to you. And here are my scraps. It's not all of them. I have more. Not a heck of a lot, but so I've organized them by color, And then what I'm going to do is just sort of go through my cards and get an idea of what I can use. So for instance, I have this card front, and I could put something on the front of it. Like, to me, that's too busy. This wouldn't work. That could work, but that's really busy. But something like this would look nice with that. So, and this is matted, so I'm going to probably try to find something to mat this with. And this has the light blue, so I might use that. I have a couple of these plain red ones, and these you could mat with different colors, and they'll make a nice accent. So I'm going to just take some of the smaller rectangles and squares, take some of these pieces. I might have to cut them down, but I'm going to go mat some. So I'll show you what I mean in just a second. Okay, so I took some of the squares and rectangular scraps and just put them on some cardstock. I just cut it down 3/16 of an inch larger than the pattern square and glued it on. So then you can take your cards and decide how you're going to put the squares on. So for instance, we might have this, and then if you had happy birthday below, you could just do that. And it's not a bad card. I probably would rather a rectangular pattern. Let's see how that looks. I mean, that looks okay too. I think this turquoise is a little too big for the happy birthday sentiment, but I'm just going to work with that now. I think that looks great. So you can just glue that on and you're done. And then later on we'll go down and do some embellishing. So there's an idea. Now you take a plain card base. So obviously you don't want to use that same pattern. And you could use a simpler pattern, and then maybe, actually, let's do it this way, because this has a white card base. You could actually go something like that. Maybe this. I would like to go like that. Maybe like that. And then take your sentiment and put it there. And I like to sort of tie 2 or 3 elements together with the sentiment. So does that look any better? I mean, that's not bad. That's not a bad card. So there's that. That's how to use a card base with a pattern. So this one has a fairly busy pattern. I would go with, and this has the white outer card base with the light turquoise inner card base. So you could use this one and happy birthday like that, or happy birthday like that, and you're still allowing some of that pretty paper in the back to show. So that's not bad. What do we do with a white card? Would that work? And that would work as well. I sort of like this because this has the inner turquoise, and you can put that anywhere there, or even forget about that, or put, I don't know. I like this because that's a pretty picture, but you could just ignore it and just put the happy birthday sentiment like that. So now let's take my favorite, this, and I don't know, well, I guess the yellow would work on a white card base. That's okay. Obviously, if you add the green, to me, or the turquoise, I think that's too many colors unless you continue to add other colors and just make it bright and cheerful. Let us try red on red. That's a little, it gets washed out. I think you would agree. And if obviously the turquoise wouldn't work, let's see how that looks. That's not terrible, but let's try this one. I think that looks a little better. If we put that at the top, it's okay. It's not my favorite. You know, I just think this is such a bold pattern. It's going to be hard to find something that is not so bold to work with. So if I do something a little more muted on the center, Let's try this. Do I have a smaller one? Let's try that on the center. See, that's okay. That's all right. It doesn't have the white or the red outline. It just sort of comes across. It's a muted tone, so you could do that. Another thing you could do with these long strips is, and that fits perfectly, you could do long strips going down the side. If I put it up there, maybe it's easier for you to see with the happy birthday there, or you could even add another pattern. I want something small. So, you know, that actually brings this out a little bit, so it's not terrible. Something like this to me is too busy. So I would keep it simple and let this red beautiful pattern do all the talking. And one other thing you can do, so I'm going to grab my ATG and just add just a couple of teeny dots of ATG. I'm going to push this. I'm going to come in so you could see it more detail. I'm going to take this and put it right down the bottom with the same amount of border, one side to the other. I'm going to grab some scissors. And I'm going to go up about 1/2 inch from the center. And then I'm going to go over on a diagonal. I can come in a little bit more. Over on a diagonal from the corner to the top of that line that we made. And same here. And so now we have a fishtail. And because we tacked it down, I'm going to just pull it off and move that up. I'm just going to cut it here. And now you have a nicely done fishtail. I'm going to zoom back out. And how would this fishtail? I need to glue it still. But you could do something like that. Or even, again, touching it just slightly. And if this had a red border around it, that might be good. Or even a couple of different fishtails with different patterns. So there's a couple of different options. Now, here's another way, instead of cutting one rectangle and one rectangle to match on the cardstock, I'm going to show you a quick way. And this is if you have a good eye for measurement. If you don't have a good eye for measurement, if that's not your strong suit, no big deal. Everybody has strong suits. But if it's not your strong suit, this might not be the best thing. But what I do is I have all these different size rectangles. And I am going to simply glue them down. Now you could use ATG or not a permanent kind of adhesive, something you could pull off if you didn't like it. But I am just going to jump in and glue these down. All right, which one do I like? I'm going to do the yellow showing. And I'm just using the red just because that was the biggest piece of cardstock I had. So I'm going to start in the corners first and make sure there is the same size border on the two corners that I can see. This one I'm going to do the flowery side because you know that is probably my favorite. And that does look nice on the red. I like that. Well, that won't work. Do I want that red on red? You know, I'm going to do it just to show you how I do my cutting. So again, if I have an 1/8 of an inch top to bottom, I'm going to have 1/8 of an inch to the side. And I still have room for this one. So I'm going to put that here. All right, that's as far as I'm going to go with that. I could add one or two more, but I'm not going to at this point. I'm going to grab my paper trimmer and show you what I'm going to do with this. So first I'm going to just cut it in half. And then I am going to cut this, and this red one I'm going to cut with the same size border on the left side that I did on the right side, and I'm going to do the same thing here. So I've got one, so I'm going to do this one as well. You have to know exactly where your paper will cut, and if I wasn't sure, I could always put it on this side. I have two, but I know on my paper trimmer exactly where it's going to cut. So I've got three. Same thing with this one. Same thing with this one. Four. And five a piece. So now I've gotten those five just by gluing it onto one piece of paper and making some cuts. So I'm going to continue, whoops, I put them out of camera. So I'm going to continue cutting down some more rectangles and squares, and then I'm going to put some on some cards and give you an idea of how to continue with this. All right, I've gone through maybe half of the card fronts that I had. So I'm going to show you what I did. So this one was pretty easy to figure out. I just took a cut apart. I did border it on blue paper just so there would be a little separation between that really busy border and the turquoise paper it's on. But that's how to use a cutout. I'm not sure I like how I did this. This is white with the yellow ochre and then the pattern. I did yellow ochre, white, and then the pattern. I didn't like it the other way, but once you put something on here, you won't notice it. I just did a strip across the side, thinking there will be a sentiment like that. I put two patterns, so you have three total patterns. This is a small, busy pattern. This is a larger geometric pattern, and then there's flowers. So it works because they're different kinds of patterns. I just did the fishtails on here. I think I could put a sentiment up here. Let's see how this looks. Nah, probably down here. In this case, I probably should have moved this up or down. So maybe I'll do a smaller sentiment or just something right over here. I'm not sure. I'll figure that out. Yeah, see, you could put a sentiment there and a flower or something over there. Same with this. And I'm not telling you everything's going to have this turquoise on it, but just so you get an idea. That works. I mean, it's two fairly busy patterns, but this is tone on tone, and this is just a busy pattern. It had the red on it, and that got lost on the background, so I put the white around it so it would pop. That works. You know I love that. If you use a total different color, then that works. Huge pattern on the bottom. That'll work. So I just took red and put the red on there. I could have embossed, dry embossed something. And I could put the sentiment here and a flower or some kind of embellishment there. Another one with the red. That'll be okay. I mean, you're getting the idea, right? Just have things that match. That's interesting. Just interesting. This is an interesting one because I used the same paper as the background, but because it's on a red border, it looks totally different. Then you throw a sentiment here, which would have white on with a background. Probably could do red and then the white sentiment. That would work. This one with a fishtail, I love this with the red. Actually, that's front and back paper. So you could put the sentiment here. That works. That one and that one. So you get the idea. So go ahead and put the squares and rectangles. And the reason I don't do circles is just because it takes time to die cut, and I'm doing the sentiment in a circle. My mind works this way. If you have a lot of squares and rectangles, then do something to balance it out with round. And it doesn't have to be a circle. You could just have rounded corners. You could have a sentiment on another rectangle, and it would work because this is not a rectangular design. This has a lot of lines, and I think if you just did a lot of linear, like if you did this and a square sentiment, I think it's too much square. But that's just in my mind. It may not be exactly how you see things. So that is what I did. I went through and put a bunch of squares and rectangles on the patterns or the fishtail. Now, next I will go through and put sentiments on. And as you know, most of the sentiments I have are these round ones. So I'll go through with the ones I have, and then I may need to stamp some more in a different form or fashion. Okay, wait, stop the presses. Before sentiments, I have these larger embellishments. These are cut aparts. They were tags from the paper collection, and some have writing on it and some don't. So I treat them a little bit differently. So this says Country Girl, and I don't think I'd put Country Girl and then Happy Birthday on the card front. So, and this one says farm, but very quietly, so you could use that on the front. And then these don't have anything written on them. So in my mind, you could put a sentiment plus one of these. So something like this little farmhouse, and I fussy cut that whole sucker out. You could put that there. Could you put Happy Birthday? Or that down there. It's really a busy pattern, so I don't know about that. If this wasn't so busy, then that would work. That without any sentiment on the front. What do you think? I don't know. I think it's a matter of taste. I'm certainly not going to fussy cut around here. If you had a brother scan and cut, you could do something like that. But another thing you could do, so see, I like a little more simple. I would probably go with something like this. But you could take this little barn and put it on the inside of the card. And then it adds some pizzazz to the inside of your card. So there's that. You know, so these patterns match really nicely. I don't know anyone who has a cow and farms, but if I did, I would certainly do something like that. There is this adorable Wilbur the dog. So that could go like that down at the bottom. Happy Birthday. Or if you open the card like this, could you go like that? Happy Birthday. That would be great for housewarming. So you could do something like that. So this one is still plain, but you could put farm fresh eggs there and Happy Birthday. It's got those beautiful colorful roosters. And suppose we did Happy Birthday with on a red circle. Sort of have them touching, overlapping a little bit. That's all right. That's not terrible. I might do a border strip across the whole thing in red. Do we have any red little scrappies? No, I don't, to show you, but just to give you an idea of how that would work. But I mean, this looks nice on here. This one, so this is beautiful, first of all. So I've got That paper, that's already done. Could I put this up here? You could, but here's why it wouldn't work. The stripes on this go up and down, and here on the main thing they go across. If they went the same, would I still? I don't know. Could I put this down underneath there if I pulled it up a little, and the sentiment there? No, I still think it's not balanced. So I still think I would do a sentiment there and take this and put it inside the card. But of course, they're your cards. You can do what you want. This one, so it's got some of the flowers there. You could definitely put that there and a sentiment at the top. I think that works perfectly. If you had a square sentiment or a white piece of paper with the sentiment on it, and that goes on the bottom, that would work too. If I run out of sentiments, I might do that. I'll put that at the end. All right, we've got the little doggy again, and this is a cut apart. I've got a goldenrod piece of cardstock. Let's put him there. And then that hello. Maybe hello goes up higher, and that goes like that. What do you think about that? I think that works perfectly, and I'm going to just glue that and say that one's done. So now I will go through and add the sentiments to the cards, keeping in mind if I can use any of these in any other way. Okay, so I've put sentiments on these cards. After this we'll do embellishments, but I just want to show you. So I did stamp a couple of extra that were across, and I had told you before I didn't like too many square shapes, but I have a feeling I'll put some flowers here, something like that, and so that'll just soften up all of the squares. So there's that. This one I wasn't sure how I was going to do, so I just stamped and rounded the corners just so it's not so linear. This one is done, unless I have a couple of little small flowers to put there. It's okay, but that was one of those cut aparts I put on there. It's okay. This I actually had in my stash and had this background without anything on it, and I thought that's okay. I still might add something to it. Again, I'll add something to it. That will work out wonderfully, as will that. I mean, I guess you can see there's a pattern here sort of with those. Now this one, I just decided to add this. I just thought these roosters were adorable and I had to do something. So I'm not sure what I will add to that. An embellishment there. I decided to do the cow. I was thinking, you know, I know several people that own cows, believe it or not, and I might send them a birthday card. I should have thought of it before because I don't like where I put this. I put this down first and then I added the cow, but we'll figure it out. This one I went this direction. I sort of like that. I like how that came out. That one came out okay too. I don't know that I'll add too much unless I have a couple of little flowers or dots. That one you saw, that one you saw, that one you saw. This one I didn't add something to. I forgot, they got on the wrong pile. So this one I just wanted to show you. So we've got that, and if I just add a flower to that, oh, you get the idea. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to put it. I want it to come off of the side and have it touch some of that get well soon. So anyhow, that is it for putting the sentiments on. Now I will go through, maybe I can do this one. That might be better. And I have my pre-cut flowers. I have these birthday cakes. Obviously they're going to go on the happy birthday cards. So now I'm going to go through and put all of my embellishments on and show you what I have with that. All right, I'm going to do a final walkthrough on the cards with any embellishments. On this one I didn't put any embellishments on. And that one I didn't either. I don't think. This one I just put a flower down near there. This one I decided the flowers didn't look good. I decided to put one of those circle embellishments I had cut from the tags there. This one, not nuts about. I think it's really busy, but I just put the gathered together, thinking that would be a fun thing to send, like friends of mine are going out to dinner with their family, and that would be a nice thing to say thank you. And there's hello. The get well soon, oh yeah, we already saw that. So here's a flower next, oh, I think we've seen those. All right, here's ones we haven't seen. The larger flowers, nothing to do on that one. Oh, the birthday cake. In retrospect, they're very busy. You can't even see that. I probably should have put it on a circle. This one showed up a little bit better, except the top of it blends in with that since I used the same paper. But the cakes themselves are pretty cute. Couldn't figure out what to do with the cow. Another birthday cake on a busy background. The flowers look perfect there. Love the flowers on there as well. I like the little teacup, coffee cup down at the bottom. So I think I cut out of a larger section of this one of the birds and the birdhouse and the heart. I ended up putting the birdhouse inside. A little too country for me, but it's okay. I like that one. I have not put a sentiment on there. So I will probably put Get Well Soon right there with maybe a blue background. The very final thing to do is go through and add, if you want adhesive gems, if you want enamel dots, just see if you can add some dimension. So, and one final thing I wanted to tell you is, so I've made up the card design as I went. If you go on Pinterest and you punch in card sketches, that will give you an idea, more of a roadmap for each card design. And maybe that's a better way of starting. But if you've done cards before, I mean, this squares, rectangles, and circles, and then embellishments. It works. It's not too difficult to do. You have to have a little bit of an eye for it, but it's not terrible. Geez, can I put a little cupcake there? I don't know. I should have probably put the cupcake there instead of the cake. Too late. Anyhow, there is my quick tutorial, or easy, maybe not quick, but easy to follow tutorial on how I make cards using scraps from a paper collection. Please put comments in the comment area and let me know if you've tried this and how you feel about using this method. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for following along, and thank you for subscribing to my channel. It really helps me out a lot. Don't forget this this paper collection is Sweet Southern Mess. It comes from Country Craft Creations. I'll put a link in the description box. And thanks so much for watching. Have a fabulous day.